etc. Oops, are we live? I think we are live. We're in a bit of a stress here, so don't mind me while I fix some things. Here we go. Sound good? Does the sound good, chat? Let's see. Haven't pulled up the stream on my other screen here. So. Hi everyone. God, it sounds so good. Says Xanthic69. I take it that means that the audio is good.
Can't imagine it sounding less than that good.
Ask me how it sounds again. How does it sound, Xanthith? How's the sound? So good. How's it going, Frederick? Merry Christmas. Glad to have you on. We're on fire with Christmas spirit. We're so excited. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Good to see you all. How y'all doing? I hope you're having a good Christmas. How's your Christmas going?
Yeah, I don't know. So, I guess, but...
Can I spell here? Game development. That's right, right?
So it seems. Giving away though.
Really, I really am. But I hadn't written out the patch notes, so I'm a bit late to the party. Oops. Alright, so without further ado, I guess, happy holidays to everyone. This is going to be the Christmas stream. We're going to talk a little bit about the year, what we've been through, I guess, and also just be in a general festive mood, and yeah, just shoot the breeze, take questions, play a little, do the yush. And we're also going to push the patch, which is going to be the final patch of the year. Mm-hmm. And we did some interesting things here, and I hope you like it. We're going to get to it, maybe just get to it right away.
Yeah.
What's the use in waiting? Indeed. So if you message the server,
yeah, right.
Feel free to.
There we go.
And I'm gonna there. We want your lips closer to the microphone, please, says Leprechaun Pot. Okay? I hope you can hear me now. I'm not sure we can get much closer to the microphone.
Or at least not without kissing.
At least not without kissing. We want to avoid that. So we can, we'll try our best to speak loudly. We want moist lips, says Zentit. Do you have walled the server?
I have walled the server.
The server has been walled.
The server has been walled.
Have been walled. Can someone explain to me this walk business? Walk business. There's no walk business here. Let's see, we're gonna take that, all of that, and we're gonna move over here, start preparing the patch notes. We're gonna this is not actual. Oops. Can I show that?
Oops. Well, I mean, be happy it wasn't worse.
Could have been so much worse. So we're preparing here, getting ready. Let's see. We don't want to be pushing those things because we haven't done anything with those. So remove those, I guess. What's going on? So what's going on, chat? How y'all doing? Bought all the Christmas gifts yet? Y'all ready and psyched for the big event?
We all know what's going on. It's bumbling's going on.
It's bumbling going on as usual. What else? What can you expect when it's dev stream?
What else is new?
There's always going to be a lot of fumbling when we're doing, at least when I'm doing the dev stream. Let's see. Goldies have been awarded. We'll deal with that later. Deal later with. I should really have prepared this ahead of time. My bad. That's looking pretty good, right? So that's going to be the nice wallpaper then. Thank you. That's going to be the image. So we're going to take a look at that in game pretty soon here. But let me just. So are you ready for Christmas, Frederick?
Somewhat, at least. Could be worse.
You bought all the gifts?
Not all, but I think I've managed to deal with half of them at least.
Yeah.
So that's better than most years.
That is better than most years. Yeah, me too. I feel similarly. What did the gold subscribers get? They got the candy cane.
No, that was for the silver subscribers.
The golds are getting 2, right?
Yeah, but the golds I think are getting the gnomes cap. Let me just check to be sure, I guess. But, yes, that is correct.
Didn't they get both?
Yeah, of course, but that is what they got in addition to what silvers got.
Sure. Are you keeping your tomtas nicely fed? Haven't put out any porridge. Not one
which is a shame, of course, but since we don't have porridge, either of us, that would be difficult.
Indeed, but I'm also not one to placate evil little spirits. So. Let's see here. Have we... Turtle Elvis says Orca should hunt seals and throw them up in the air. That's actually a good point. They should probably be
a good point.
Aggressive towards seal and walruses. And do orcas interact negatively with walrus?
Well, I mean,
walrus get in the water a lot. I mean, they're basically just lard tubes, so I suspect the water is their natural element.
It is, but there is perhaps a risk of somewhat bad interaction between the two, since orca don't get up on shallow waters.
Right on. So that would not interact well with their AI presently.
Not naturally, at least, probably.
She would have to fix that. But seals get on land too as well. They right.
Yeah, but I don't think they flee up on land at least.
Oh, interesting.
I think the resources are there.
There we go. So can I just post this then?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Salsome. So let's just post it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Fire up. Oh, I should probably set the process. Set the process to accurately reflect what we're doing here. Boom, boom, boom.
Because that has not always been the case historically, has it?
No, it has not. I usually suck at that. So. Let's hope that's accurate. I'm just going to post it. If there's anything wrong with it, we can fix that later. And then I'm going to go into the boutique. You get a rare behind-the-scenes look here at me fumbling with the boutique. Let's see. That one is going away. So no more Blue Jays cap for you. No more Helsing hat for you. And the rhubarb helm, one of my finest creations, is going out. Boom. And we're gonna instead add the gnome's cap. We want the Christmas cowboy hat, alive and well. And we want the candy cane bowler, alive and well, in the store.
Did we do an update last Saturday?
I don't remember why.
Because there's a backup from then.
Yeah, maybe you restarted it?
Yeah, right, there was that knockout update.
So make sure that these are... That's not right. That's not accurate. That's not accurate. I don't... Leonardo.
So I guess I can just start the server, right? No
Sounds fine to me. Let's see. We want that to be number 1. Cool. Very cool. Let's see. Leonardo's cap. We want that to be number 6, was it? I think so. And let's make sure that's better, right? That is what God intended, right?
Looks good.
Looks pretty good.
Looks wonderful.
Awesome. So those are the 3 hats we added at the Christmas patch. And let me take this opportunity to completely, without any selfish interest whatsoever, mention to you that casually and in passing that we're very, very close to hitting a numerically very, very significant number in the store. And we we don't need much, but if you would have it in your heart to spare me a copper, me brother, then we would be very grateful.
That's true.
That is true. So, we're gonna set this to a sticky. Boom. And we're obviously very grateful to everyone who supported us over this year and many others, and we couldn't ask for more, really. So your support means a lot, and we're very grateful for it. And boom. There we go. I think that's the patch as far as it needs to be done. Done? It was a done deal. We pushed the patch, right?
Yes.
I think we did so. Done. Oh, awesome. Let's have a look-see in game. So what did we do here, Frederick?
Well, we added. I think we're all looking at the Christmas wreaths on the ground.
Of course, we added Christmas wreaths last Christmas. Right?
Yes.
So the new thing here are these pretty cool lights,
Indeed.
which, they may have some issues. They're a bit flickering, but that aside, it's pretty cool, right?
I would think so.
Yeah. We added, basically we added, V Dimmer says, "What? Electric lights? Are you serious?" These are not electric lights, sir. These are
elven lights.
These are elven lights. This is a strange vine that grows only around the time of Christmas.
Indeed.
These are not elven lights at all. Or
I mean, if you really want to call it electric, I guess you could call it bioelectric.
Yeah, exactly. Bioluminescence, if anything. It's clearly not an electric light.
I don't even know what would have given me that idea.
No, I don't know. That impression, though. I mean, those were added by elves.
Yes.
That is an elven vine, sir.
Yes.
So let there be no doubt. So, but the main point perhaps being that it was a pretty cool experiment with a new kind of lighting.
Yeah, indeed.
So,
and I think this would, I think many, at least assuming that it works properly, many things in the game would benefit from this, like torches and whatnot.
Zented69 says, "My uncle is an elf and he's never heard of these." I wouldn't know what to tell you about that, sir. Sounds odd.
Yeah, sounds very odd.
Sounds very odd. I think most elves would be familiar with that.
Yeah, sounds like your uncle is a bit out of the loop or something.
Yep.
Perhaps he has lived with humans for too long.
Exactly. Perhaps he secretly considers himself and identifies as a human. Perhaps he's actually a human. Perhaps your uncle. Cozy TV says, "Will these lights just appear based on the in real life calendar, or do you toggle them on off?" They're based on the real life calendar, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they don't actually appear on all trees.
No.
They spawn and you can collect them.
Yeah.
And decorate your homes.
Yep. Perhaps they should actually wither off season.
Yeah, I considered that, but on the other hand, it seemed reasonable that you can save. I would save them up for next Christmas too.
Yep. Oh, that's true. Playable elf race when? Comments Beauchamp. Right after Dogman.
Yeah. Somewhere around then. That being said, though, you can play an elf now with the gnome's cap.
Exactly. So you can be an elf if you want to. If you really want to be an elf, what's stopping you, sir? So yeah, that was the Christmas patch, and also orcas are pretty cool.
Yeah,
we added those.
Sure enough.
I can actually. Whoa.
Yeah,
you can see a hint of what orcas are all about. Add one of these majestic beasts. Not gonna spoil them entirely to you, but they're pretty cool, and they're not like they're less fierce than the sperm whale or casualots.
In and of themselves, yes, but on the other hand,
there could be more of them.
Yeah.
So please let one hit your Knar. No, I'm not gonna do it. Do orcas attack destroyed boats? Who knows? I've never met an orca in my life. I wouldn't.
Me neither.
I have no idea.
Haven't you been to weren't you to the Waterland recently? Didn't you
see
any orca that bad?
No, there were no orcas. There were dolphins. There were, but no orcas. Unfortunately, I don't think keeping orcas is. Have you seen Blackfish, the documentary? Have you guys seen Blackfish, the documentary?
I haven't seen it.
It's a documentary. It's like from 2008 maybe, and it's about. I think I've talked about it. It's about SeaWorld. and about orca keeping in general, like in at zoos or water land type installations, and it's pretty depressing. It's pretty sad story about like because you have this image in your head maybe that like okay, so the people who this is a character I started recently, who the people who run the zoo type installations where they keep the orcas are serious marine biologists, et cetera. But the documentary at least makes the case that these were basically like sea cowboys capturing wild orcas in the 70s and putting them in like these little cramped installations. And so it was basically making the case that shouldn't keep orcas in captivity and whatnot. And telling a soppy story about how sad the poor orcas were in the zoos and whatnot.
Well, I mean, no one should really be surprised, I guess.
No.
I mean, these are creatures that are supposed to be living in vast expanses of sea, and and trapping them in what is like at most 100 meters and of pool water seems perhaps not in their best interest.
Exactly. But the question is if the conservation standpoint motivates it, I guess.
Sure.
If there's any conservational argument to be made for
I don't think they're threatened though, are they?
No, I don't think so. Can't say that I know for sure, but no, I wouldn't think that they're particularly threatened. No. But I don't know. I don't think like orcas. I'm not sure orcas were really a part of like the big whale hunting stuff going on in the late 19th century. I don't think orcas were like a prime target for that.
I wouldn't know about that.
I mean, I figured they're mostly after the sperm whales for the
spermaceti.
Exactly. To make it into oil.
The Valrof.
Indeed, the Valrof. We should really call it that.
We did.
They look too much like pandas, so the Asians leave them alone. Well, actually, I read that eating whale meat is apparently a fairly recent invention in Japan. I don't think it's particularly traditional. My understanding, I don't know where I got this, but
now that you mention it, I think I also saw that it was like almost a post-World War II
exactly.
thing.
My understanding is that it was basically a post-World War II thing when like food was scarce in Japan, and they decided let's go hunt whales, and they did. But and apparently like many boomer type Japanese people, supposedly have like fond or not so fond memories of eating whale meat at school and stuff like that when they were kids.
I have gotten the impression that eating whale meat is getting less common in the Faroe Islands as well.
Yeah, you were there, and then the Faroe Islands. How was it? How was whale? Did you?
We didn't actually eat whale.
No whale was consumed.
I think it was we didn't find it anywhere.
Right.
And it was my impression that later generations are perhaps not so fond of it.
Right.
It was said that it doesn't really taste that good.
Right. That's my understanding as well. Is that it's not exactly a culinary experience of much merit. So.
There were also some concerns about the like they're so high up in the food chain that they have a lot of
accumulated a lot of mercury and heavy metals
stuff like that.
Yeah. So Cozy TV says eating a whale would make me feel like a colossal asshole.
Well, it might make you feel colossal.
Eating a whale. You definitely feel colossal. Boom. Funny, you get points for that one. So. No, but I don't really. I can't say I have much moral issue with like eating whale. Not more so than with eating like
other mammals.
I mean, granted, whales are more majestic and beautiful creatures.
Yeah, certainly. But I mean, deers are rather majestic too.
They can be. A moose at least can be. The moose can, though, truth be told, look pretty stupid as well.
Yeah,
sure. But I don't know how much of an ethical issue I have with eating whale, but obviously you don't want to eat the endangered animals.
Yeah, exactly.
That seems dumb or unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Snapco says, any thoughts about alts and early energy gain in relation to hunger? Do we have any thoughts about that?
Do we? Are there any particular new thoughts about that at all?
No, I mean, he's concerned that you wreck your hunger. There was a post about this on the forums that I meant to reply to in the last update thread that we did on the satiation change.
Okay.
So for everyone not in the loop on that, we changed satiations to now work in the way with they have individual satiations per food item type rather than per category. and I think that was a well-received change. I think most people like that.
It seems so, at least.
Yeah.
Though there were some discussions about the hunger meter.
There indeed, and that's probably what he's referring. Yeah, there were discussions about the hunger meter, and that's probably where he's coming from.
I'm not sure. I've actually read the updates to that thread after the last post I made.
Because I think the concern is early on you can like spawn alts, and you can't. It's hard restoring energy on your main character because you're gonna wreck your hunger.
Yeah, sure. I get the hunger restoration or the energy restoration argument, I guess, but I don't know.
Someone said drinks restore energy. They do, but only the higher tier higher tier drinks that you're not gonna have on day one of the new world, anyway, like beer and wine.
Yeah, that's really true.
So that's not really pertinent to the argument. So yeah, I'm not sure how to feel about that. I guess there's some case to be made that it should be changed.
I mean, there is certainly some degree of stupidity to the huge alt forms that I have seen early world.
Yeah, definitely.
During most worlds.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think that is a strong argument in and of itself to remove hunger.
No, I mean, weigh in on this, chat. Like, a lot of people want hunger removed, or that's a common argument.
That is a common argument. I feel though that actually in particular with this latest change, I think that would create some exaggerated incentives to just eat every single piece of food in the entire game.
Yeah,
I do think that hunger has some reasonable balance to strike with.
Yeah, I mean, you have the usual issue of like time gating as a mechanic in general, where like if you time gate everything, then people who are kind of behind in the time race can't never really catch up. At least if you and I work equally hard all the time and I'm ahead of you, I began playing ahead of you, then you can never really quote unquote catch up.
Yeah.
But I think there are several things that could be said against that. Like number one, we could cap like the effective difference between combat fighters completely, so you would be able to catch up, in terms of combat effectiveness at least, and blah blah blah. But the general kind of question about time gates, I suppose, still stands. So I mean, Phalanix says hunger is stupid at this point. Just remove it. Why is it stupid? You need to explain to me why it's.
I mean, we just explained why hunger is not stupid, so I think you may have to make a counterpoint at least.
Cozy TV says hunger shouldn't go below 100%, in my opinion. Snapco says
100%. What does that mean?
He doesn't want it to like go into the 50s and.
I see. I thought the more common argument was that it shouldn't go above 100%. Seems people are commonly more opposed to the 200 and 300% levels.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be more like maybe more looking at like removing the ability to eat at 300% gain, because that has certainly skewed my perspective of what is reasonable to gain from food. Snapco says hunger is good, it limits people's progress, but it harms people who try to restore energy on main character instead of sitting out at the table and doing everything with alts. Yeah. That being said, I mean, given that, like, I don't know, I think alts are going to be a thing anyway. Like, if
it is certainly true. I mean, I'm conflicted on the issue as usual. I guess. I mean, it's true that it's pretty stupid to create to create more incentives to have alts for things. But on the other hand, it's like the alternative really is to completely isolate every mechanic in the game so that it can be manipulated completely in isolation. And I think that's going too far.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, also, like, Cozy TV says, I would rather be 100% hunger and then affected positively with weed, tables, etc. Not a man of 300% hunger or 50% hunger. Not a fan of. Yeah. So maybe there's an argument for that. I think.
Well, I mean, that would be removing hunger.
Yeah, no, he wants hunger or removed.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
He wants it removed.
Yeah.
Ground is not flat enough. You're not flat enough. You're not flat enough. Yeah, no, okay, so, but if we remove hunger, isn't there a strange incentive in place to eat all day, every day? And eat every last item of food? Is that really what you want to be doing? Isn't it nice that,
you don't have to go out and collect every single berry and every single seed and
like just eat Curator says remove hunger and put back stat caps, so maxing out character is an infinite, less incentive to alt, and much easier to catch up for people who join late in the war.
I would argue that would create more incentives to alt.
Yeah, it does create more incentives to alt, and then you want to create more characters, presumably, but also, like, we're not generally a fan of stat caps.
There is that too.
Like, I don't think they did a whole lot.
I don't think they did a whole lot of good when we had them.
You know, and there's, it's also, it just seems so arbitrary. Like, why not just, like, why not, you know, fix a like thoroughly implemented capping of the relative combat difference, because we think that we probably want to be capping the difference in strength and constitution, which is the biggest thing that you can like grind beyond other people right now. Is you know, the difference in strength and constitution is not affected by any sort of like relative comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've been talking about changing that, because there's at least one good point in the combat logic where you could add a comparison.
That being said, the results are somewhat retarded in terms of realism, at least.
Yeah,
but
yeah, sure, somewhat, but it could be worse too. Like I think,
sure, I guess it could be worse.
I think the gameplay benefits of you know, having an effective cap on combat effectiveness would, you know, outweigh the.
It might very well, but it might also feel like a very explicit and somewhat retarded handicap.
Zunzon says hunger makes you collect a vast amount of food and not use it. Also makes a lot of recipes non-profitable to waste hunger on. Yeah, I mean, that would be the.
I mean, that is certainly true, but I think at least the individual satiations have improved that situation.
They should have. But like, okay, so what about the hunger? Not or not, people are gonna make alts. At least make it fun and weird and random. Make it so when you hit stat cap, you roll a personality trait like Arcanum. Like you complete your character and then roll a dice to gain some weakness / strength, and then start over with the character again, or what?
What indeed?
I have been playing Legacy and eating what I want when I want is such a freeing feeling. I enjoy it a lot, and I always have. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that. But isn't it, like, don't you have a strange incentive to eat everything all the time?
Well, not in Legacy, because you don't have satiations there.
True. Yeah, but is it all the more reason then to eat all day, every day, right?
Yeah, sure, and that's certainly true. I was thinking about eating everything.
Phalanix says the news says she has not changed anything in relation to hunger. You still only need most effective food since you're mainly limited by hunger.
Are you mainly limited by hunger?
I suppose I don't know. Are you? Are you mainly limited by hunger? Yeah, you're. I mean, obviously by definition, it's the only limitation you have on you.
Yeah, except satiations.
Yeah, but they're local and temporary.
Yeah, but they could certainly be the main limiting factor per dish.
Sure. But yeah, but I mean, generally, the limiting factor is going to be hunger. I mean, it's the only general limiting factor there is. So obviously.
Yeah, but if you're just eating one thing, I mean, he was talking about there only being, you know, a very few select effective recipes that you only use.
Yeah, but I mean, the takeaway there being that, okay, so maybe the satiation change made it so they use like 5 dishes instead of like, you know, 1 or whatever.
Perhaps. I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know either.
But that being said, one thing that I actually did mention the other day, but that I guess we either forgot or didn't have time to implement, was changing the symbol items.
Yeah.
I do feel that since we changed the symbol mechanic this world, they are perhaps too weak.
Perhaps there was a case to be made. Not sure that addresses the more general.
Well, I mean, if they allow you to go down to 1% hunger.
Yeah, I suppose it's a balance issue. I suppose that would be a balance issue. But it also, like, I mean, it makes it certainly, yeah, it's a different thing. Because with the symbol items, you could have a dimension of, like, rich getting richer, shaking my head. It's you know, where noobs are hit hard by hunger, but people who've played a lot, you know, are not affected by it at all. So that could be an argument against the price. I don't know. So Zenda69 says, for people who want hunger gone, do you also want permadeath back? Since you could probably eat your way back to stat cap in a couple of days from scratch this late in the game. Yeah, that's a good question, Zenta. Do you? Should we bring back permadeath, or like remove the ability to teleport home? What do you think about that?
Good question, I guess. I don't really think I mind the rage mechanic as it currently works.
Yeah.
I know there are some who do though. Not sure what the arguments are.
Right on. How do you feel about that one, chat? Where should we go with the permanent death in 2020? Damn, it's 2020 already. It's pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy.
In the 20s, looking forward to a decadent and wild
Weimar Republic.
Weimar Republic type era. It's gonna be great. Phalanix says yes, stat cap plus permadeath. I don't. Okay, if by stat cap, I'm gonna read you as like effective cap on combat difference because we're not implementing a hard stat cap. I'm not. I don't want to do that.
I mean, that being said, we have discussed mechanics that are similar to stat caps. You know, like the only the first character to eat beyond a certain stat does it the hard way, so to speak.
Yeah, we did. That was one of the things we talked about for World 11, effectively making it so that we
actually talked about it after World 11, but anyway.
Okay, where we talked around the time of launching World 11, we talked about making it so that the first character who sets a new server record for a particular stat has to like go through a wall of like, I don't know, 10x the normal effort or whatever, or something along those lines. So, you know,
that being said, only imposing that tax for the very first character is probably pretty dumb. But
yeah, that is probably
it should probably be something like it getting easier as you catch up to the server leading characters or something like that. But anyway.
Mutable God says that is an amazing idea. An amazing idea.
Amazing idea.
Amazing. So great. Phalanx says now all you have to do is more than discuss and implement it. Lol. Not even kidding. All right. So his chat is cautiously optimistic toward that. Scroll back up about hunger, please. Drunken Jacob says all can be killed while knocked out, or nobody can get killed while knocked out. You gotta choose it. It's stupid that some can die in a fight and others can't.
Why? Why is that stupid?
I mean, you know, teleporting home after being knocked out is one thing, but the rage change, which is more exactly what now that you can't, you lose that ability when you
get the
range. Exactly. I think that may be weak sauce like that. The rage change, I'm kind of skeptical of.
Oh, why? Why is that? I haven't seen any particular reason to be skeptical.
Not exactly sure, but it seems a bit gimmicky, I guess.
You think?
I could see that it creates, like, we talked about that when implementing it as well, like it could create like strange incentives in combat.
Yeah, sure. I won't deny that, but I haven't seen much to indicate that the situation is horribly out of control, at least.
Let's see. Oh, what's going on there? Oh, I hearted him. That's what's going on. Majority wouldn't feel. How do I turn off the
VG Hertz.
VG Hertz.
HZ, that is. Like 100.
There we go. So now when the game is out of focus, it won't be slow.
Yeah.
What did you want me to read? A 1k base UIM stat cap with a limitless ceiling through gear boosts would likely be more than fine for most people.
What? 1k base? Infinite ceiling.
Yeah.
Through gear boost. Yeah, so exactly the stat cap we used to have that is. Yeah. Except it was perhaps 600 rather than 1,000, but I still think it's a bit stupid.
Anyways, gameplay is stuck since World 7 Legacy when you have to shoot, don't talk.
Shoot, don't talk.
Shoot, don't talk. I don't know. No, I don't know about that one, Monster Facey. Okay, people are abusing the fact that they can't get killed. Watch videos from meteor fights, says Drunken Jacob.
What about them?
People are abusing the fact that they can't get killed, he claims.
Okay.
Maybe that's true, I don't know. it's one of those things that's kind of hard for us to test.
Yeah.
But I could see that being the case.
Yeah,
like how do they
I
abuse
couldn't
it?
see
Then?
that being the
What's the most prominent abuse that you could present?
Indeed. That is a good question, I think.
Let's see. Any ideas about siege changes? Maybe designated vulnerability windows on claims which you are forced to pick. If you open forced window for siege, you can improve the whole system in general. Well, people don't need to wait 24 hours and will get content as well.
I don't know about that.
Why don't we like forced windows?
Why don't we like forced windows? I mean, we discussed it several times, I think. But I can't immediately remember the conclusion, to be honest.
Because Windows is a shitty operating system.
Yeah, there is that, I guess. But it for one thing, it sounds like a somewhat stupid mechanic. I think it sounds very unnatural.
On that note, could you red pill me on OneDrive? Do you know what that is?
Is that like Microsoft's cloud storage?
Yeah, exactly. Like on a Windows 10 computer, near and dear to my heart, I have a OneDrive thing, and it seems to me, I haven't looked into it much, but it seems to me as if my local user folder is basically continuously being uploaded to the cloud.
Yeah, I don't know how that actually works. I mean, I haven't used Windows in, 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
But that might be true. I mean, it is my understanding that services, not that I've used them either, but it is my understanding that services like Dropbox work similarly.
Cozy TV says OneDrive is sort of like Dropbox or Apple's cloud storage. It can be used for backup PC files, etc.
Indeed.
So I get the impression that it's been syncing my data with the CIA without properly informing me. I probably read somewhere in the
Yeah, we probably consented to it.
Yeah, I probably consented. Like in umpteenth footnote down below. Like, you really want to do this? Like, Daddy Microsoft gets your point. Damn. Like, some pretty sweet classics in my porn collection. They're getting their grubby little hands on. So what did Cozy say about hunger there? He said, in Hoffen, eating non-optimal or low-quality food feels punishing because it lowers hunger percent. I find myself starving myself because I need to wait for better foods to eat. I'd rather not worry and micromanage it all so much. Telling new players not to eat when they're hungry seems ass backwards to me. Variation bonus is good, but using subpar foods for variation also hurts your hunger bar, which discourages it. Anyway, that's what I mean. The whole stat cap thing wouldn't even matter if stats weren't as much of a deciding factor as they are now. No, that's true, and we attempted to change that, rectify that situation earlier this fall, and kind of didn't really get there. Kind of really didn't.
It was a bit of a pity.
Yeah, it was a bit of a pity.
Well, at least because I really like the combat system as it worked when in standing combat.
Yeah, and I suppose that was the main argument that we found against it, that rage abusing, says Sanson, is when you go team fighting without rage. If someone aggroes you, you can knock him and kill, but anyone can't kill you. Yeah. No, I see.
Yeah, except they don't have to aggro you.
Yeah, but that may be easier said than done, though. Like if you're coming up against a pack of wolves, like how do you know which ones are truly dangerous?
Yeah, I mean, sure, that's true. That's I'll grant you that, but couldn't that be solved?
Zented69 says, "Are you guys going to take the combat you started and try a new direction with it, or is it gone forever?"
We discussed it, but we couldn't really, I think, figure out any direction we could take that same combat system.
Yeah. So the essence of that combat system, and the thing that really adds the element of skill to it, is timing your attacks.
Exactly.
And for there to be any meaningful timing dimension to the attacks,
you have to be standing still.
You have to be standing still and basically have a wind-up timer when executing the attacks. And the problem that we felt with that, and others felt the same way, and told us about it, and we listened. Hopefully, I think, is that plays in really poorly to the fundamental dynamics of pursuit and chase.
Exactly.
Or pursuit and flight, rather.
Flight and pursuit.
Flight and pursuit in a normal combat scenario in Haven. And I think we had probably underestimated, I'd say.
Yeah,
How
I think so.
how much of your time in a serious group fight you actually spend just either fleeing or pursuing.
Exactly.
And the problem with the fighting system that we implemented, we felt, was that
it handled that situation very poorly.
It handled that situation very, very poorly because you couldn't at all hit someone who was running away.
Yeah, exactly.
And we attempted to rectify that by adding an attack which was essentially, an attack as they work presently.
Exactly.
And at first we felt that offered a positive change.
Which I think it did.
It did. It made our own fights play out much better.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I guess it wasn't enough.
I mean, I guess it is particularly perhaps the fact that it takes the system in kind of weird direction. And I mean, in particular, if the main mode of combat is going to be flight and pursuit, then all the other attacks are kind of off the table.
Yeah. Exactly.
It is only these attacks that are going to matter now.
Yeah, in a flight and pursuit situation, only those attacks are going to matter. And I like the idea of the new combat system, but it was missing engage abilities, some kind of CC or slow. Yeah?
CC?
What is CC? It sounds like a MOBA term that I'm unfamiliar with. Crowd control.
Oh, okay.
There were several attacks that, were aimed at providing crowd control. If by crowd control you mean like area of effects attacks and stuff like what is define crowd control for me. The higher your stat, the more one spam the game, slow, stun. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, we discussed adding slowing and stunning attacks, but we kind of ruled that out at a very early stage, because in a group fight, basically, if you have 5 players stunning you all the time, then you are permanently stunned, and that I think is not a good situation to be in. We had that in Salem.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, it's like maybe you could like have some window, but it generally just kind of felt wonky, like where. Because you'd have to use that all the time in pursuit, and you wouldn't be doing anything but spamming that attack over and over in pursuit, trying to get the target slowed, and then trying to close the distance to execute an attack. And a lot of the attacks are just going to be useless because you could never land like just the normal punch.
And some of those attacks are a bit problematic also in the way that, I mean, as long as the attack just gives a slowed debuff, then any ult could do that.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that could be solved through
perhaps
through some stat comparison or something. Could adding a temporary stun resistance to successive stuns fix that problem? Yeah, that was also on the table. We considered that. But generally, I also felt like there were a lot of incentives in place to just make the chases go on forever, essentially.
Yeah, and given that, you kind of have to assume that to be the main mode, the main combat mode, so to speak.
Yeah, because so you hit your opponent, he gets stunned. Maybe you even land a hit on him while he's stunned, and then you have to chase him and stun him again and hit him again.
Yeah.
And how long does the concussion protection or stun protection last? I don't know. This stream feels like brainstorming session for game balance. Like, wonderful. That's what we want the streams to be like. That's the best they can be, I think. So that's wonderful. Like, they should be that. Yeah, but you need to be able to actually hit a moving target and show it down. There's no point in running after an enemies without being able to get to them. Yeah, exactly. That was the problem.
Exactly.
That we felt was there.
Indeed.
And there were added to that, I suppose, there was the complication of the lag sensitivity that the timing system
certainly that wasn't a good thing about it, at least.
Yeah.
I suspect some people were more alarmist than perhaps necessary about the latency problem, but nevertheless, it's not like it's a completely invalid point or anything.
Yeah. Finigini says Merry Christmas and Happy Game Balancing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Phalanix says, I think new comic would have been great if you just kept at it.
Yeah, I kind of doubt that, to be honest.
Yeah. Cozy TV says, or rather, someone else said, the pick dude says, why not use archery to implement the slow stun CC attacks? Archery would need a range, says Cozy, to aiming and aim speed to make that practical. But yeah, getting hit with an arrow could slow you. Change game. I mean, under that system, we would make the arrows essentially, and what we talked about, and I guess that was one of the things we liked about the system, is that it could have potentially have integrated archery better.
Yeah, certainly.
Because what we would have done is basically like, okay, so after you fire an arrow, you have like, you get a slow stun effect on yourself, presumably, so that you move, slow after having fired an arrow. And you could also make it so that like the arrow is an actual projectile, and you actually hit, fire it in the direction where you.
I mean, arguably we shouldn't be making arrows actual projectiles anyway.
Yeah, sure, but you could get rid of the aim meter and the randomness.
Exactly.
So maybe add some sort of fast moving attack without target, and if it hits you, slow your enemy and open a window for another attack, which your opponent can just as easily dodge with just running away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
moving attack.
Yeah, fast moving attack like Go Jog or.
Yeah, sure, but we had those.
Yeah, we had those, and they didn't play out too well because like we had to make them insanely fast to ever work.
Mm.
Basically, they were kind of creating. I felt they were kind of Boolean, like you always hit or you never hit.
Yeah, kind of. I don't necessarily think that's totally true.
No, there was some counter,
but
you could
generally speaking, the problem with the problem with these fast attacks is that if you aren't slowed afterwards to compensate, then this will just be your main mode of locomotion.
Yeah.
Always.
And we can't have that. That's not good.
It's kind of like in Zelda 64, how you always roll over the map. That's kind of stupid.
That is kind of stupid. Not just kind of stupid. That's really stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we got barley flour. I found barley flour, y'all. And leather. And leather in a tanning bag.
But can you use the barley flour?
Probably not. You are right that I cannot. No, actually, maybe I can. I think I've seen seeds on this character. So maybe if I grind some seeds and bring home the quern, I don't need to bring home the quern, I can make a quern. Should add variable materials to querns, by the way.
Yeah, that is true.
Zanta69 says, somebody needs to make a chart with all the pros and cons of current combat and in new combat and post it on forums so people can work together to brainstorm and solve the problems. I think it would help a lot if Bruderbone and Loftar would write a short and decisive explanation of must-haves and ultimate desires for the future of combat. That's actually probably a good idea.
I think it is going to be hard to salvage the combat system as it was, because as long as the idea is that the main attacks are these wind up having attacks, then
that is out of touch with the flight and pursuit mechanic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in the flight and pursuit mode, you just won't use those.
Exactly.
And that just leaves half the combat system out to begin with.
Yeah. That
at least half.
That is a good argument, actually. And there was also like the dynamic where it was very easy in some situations. Like if you were getting pack mangled, it was kind of hard for you to do anything about it, because we made the change so that like the moves that restore your combat openings were had these long ass timers on them. Like jump had a long ass timer on it, which meant that like if you were being chased by someone, you can never use that because it has such a long execution time. Whereas in Legacy or in the present running combat system, if you're being chased, you can activate.
I do wonder why that particularly is such a big problem though, because doesn't that just mean that whenever you can get away at all, that just means you get rid of all your openings? Is that really a good thing?
Yeah, that is a good question actually. Snapco says the problem with the new combat is that everyone liked it, but the problem in it's too crucial to just push it to game, which is really unfortunate.
It is really unfortunate. I think so too, because in standing combat, I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with it, in testing. That was one of the things that made us,
very optimistic.
We were optimistic about it, and we kept working on it for that reason. Like we were having fun testing it.
And it was I think it was unarguably the most fun combat system we've ever made in that way.
Yeah, especially definitely. And so as a fighting system, quite simply, I think it's arguably the best one perhaps that we've made.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the argument against it was that it didn't fit in too well with, what combat is in general in Halo.
Exactly. And
namely the whole flight and pursuit thing.
Yeah, I guess there also is the argument that I'm not sure whether you want this kind of. I mean, it's a good question though, but this kind of rather intensive combat every time you go out hunting a fox.
No, that's a good question, but I think you could make stats significant enough to where you can basically just one shot the fox.
Quite possibly,
and it wouldn't be much of a problem.
Quite possibly.
So,
I'm not sure you wouldn't want it either.
No, I don't know
either. I'm not sure it really is an argument against it. I'm just not sure.
Whack food. Maybe it's a sentence. We should start considering instance-based combat or be taking inspiration from certain generals. Whack food. Whack food combat would be cool. Grandia 2. Maybe it shouldn't be flight and pursuit though. Like how I don't think I'm not sure we're getting away from the flight and pursuit dynamic.
I mean, instance combat has been suggested before, and I think with
like instance combat where you basically create a pocket world every time you enter combat.
I mean, I think we also discussed it early on.
Yeah, it was one of the ideas that we had early on for Haven.
But I think we ruled that out.
It is ugly.
It is ugly. I mean, mind you, in and of itself, I don't really, I think, even mind the flight and pursuit combat mode, because I think it is kind of
probably pretty natural or realistic.
Yeah, and kind of aesthetic that that combat uses up a large portion of the map, so to speak.
Yeah. Snapco says, what about forcing hold the point encounters which punish running away? If you don't stay in range of X meteor, for example, you won't be able to gather it, so people who hold position aren't forced to chase some people.
I mean, perhaps, but that's such a specialized thing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that might work in meteor combat specifically, but in general.
And also, like, it's very hard, I think, to come up with, like, a meaningful reward that you can get from an encounter like that is going to outweigh the risk of losing your character.
Mm-hmm.
That would have to be one heck of an item to like fill to meet those requirements. And I think the only reason that maybe meteorite fights worked kind of is that they really locked you out hard from the lowest cave level. So if you wanted to be top tier, I suppose you had to get them, or at least you had to find out what was on the 9th level of Hades. Noodle Shogun says, Merry Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas, Noodle Shogun.
Merry Christmas to you, too.
For unto us a Savior is born, etc., etc. Zented69 says, then people found out what is on level 9 and all meteor combat stopped. Yeah, they were too. They saw the horrors of the 9th cave level and dared never ascend down there.
Yeah, exactly. That must be it.
I'm sure it wasn't a dearth of content down there. That would be just dumb. Who would make a 9th cave level and then not put anything special in there? That would be dumb.
I don't know.
I have no idea. Snapco says, yeah, but right now you either fight for a static objective like rare resource or meteor or base. There are no fights outside of such situations, pretty much. Yeah, that was another thing that we talked about. We talked about removing the prevention from teleporting while you're outlawed.
Yeah, right.
We talked about that. So let us know how you feel about that one, chat. How do you feel about that one? Should you be able to use charter stones when outlawed?
What was the argument against it? It was my argument, even. I feel so stupid now for remembering it. But
well, the argument was that you're never gonna punish a perpetrator anyway, because the perpetrator is gonna be in his base, which is unsiegeable. So, like the argument, the reason that you are prevented.
Yeah, the reason that you are prevented is Hearthlings,
and especially multiple Hearthlings
exactly.
and teleporting.
Like if you're outlawed, you could just jump between Hearthlings, and that is the reason why we prevented outlawed people from using charter stones.
Yeah.
But it is true that generally you can't siege people's bases. I mean, presumably, And I guess this ties into the whole siege system discussion as well. I mean, the thing is, if there's something we would like to do with the siege system, it is to make it easier to siege like small bases, like outposts and stuff.
Yeah.
While not necessarily making it easy to siege, actual real large bases.
Yeah.
And if that is true, what do I do? Anyway, if that is true, then if you are outlawed, you'll just be hiding in a big base anyway. And so if you can't be sieged down to, then it doesn't really matter if you can teleport between Hearthwalls anyway.
What's going on here? Oops.
What is going on? What is your problem?
Whoa. I'm opening a ton of dumb browser tabs. That's what's going on. And I folded down the chat. So I'm booming hard here. That's what's going on. Boom, there we go. Chat is back. For some reason I was having the weirdest problem with mine. Yeah, but it's back. So go on.
Okay.
Where were we?
Oh, I think it was just done. I was saying that if the assumption is that an outlawed person can't reasonably be sieged into anyway,
yeah,
then arguably it is unnecessary to prevent him from vault jumping.
Yeah. So
and the point about it being that I think it would benefit combat a lot if outlawed characters could.
It would
Charterstones, because that would mean you can call in reinforcements and whatnot.
Yeah, it would restore the legacy situation of being able to join your friends in combat using Crossroads. But how did Crossroads interact with Hearthwalls? Like Hearthwalls must have been totally a thing.
Yeah, they were.
Because there was no prevention. There wasn't even an outlawed status.
No.
So, not being able to hearth with items was tried in Salem and it wasn't enjoyable for anyone. It created more headaches than fixed the niche situational issues like Flame Combat.
I don't think anyone was.
No, it was someone in the chat suggested.
Oh, okay.
The new system would remove pointless noob killings, but would make objective fights better. If we can,
I don't necessarily think that is true though, because keep in mind that I think like combat at siege situations is quite different. I think from like meteor combat,
right?
Because if you wait a minute, what was my argument here?
Where am I? What year is it? Who's the friend?
Yeah, kind of. I actually don't remember what my aura was.
Probably important. It was probably the most important thought you've had all your life, and it's gone, bro.
Well, it wasn't actually a thought I had now. It was a thought that I had previously when we were discussing this particular thing in prior months.
So Zented69 wants Hearthfire summoning back. I mean, I didn't mind Hearthfire summoning except for the fact that it was primarily used to like move ults around.
That too, but more importantly, why would you want that? Why would you prefer that to the current system of just not being able to log out? I think the current system is just better in every way.
Yeah, no,
except you can't teleport with it, of course, but that's kind of the intention.
Tend to agree. I mean, I suppose you could, make some sort of case for disliking the thing, because in Legacy you were only at threat from people who actually had your scent. In the new system, when you can't log out, you're under threat from everyone.
Sure, I guess.
I mean, I suppose you could dislike that. Like,
I guess.
I'm not sure.
I guess that's a difference.
I'm not saying I dislike that, but I suppose you could make an argument that you dislike that.
Sure enough, I guess that's the difference.
Hearthfire summoning was exciting because you never know who was going to log in when you pressed summon. Blah blah blah. 2020 H&H. Rest in peace. You guys used to have the world determine how active and popular a region wants to spawn animals. Can't you do something similar, maybe a bit more complicated, to determine what is a busy outpost and what is a main village, and have one be harder than the other?
Perhaps the problem is that it may be quite open to gaming, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you determine it by things like the number of items crafted in the vicinity or whatever, then you just leave 20 bot alts crafting things all day, every day.
Yeah, granted, the system could be obscure and they could have to like.
Sure enough, but
still holistically determine how it works. But the point being that any such activity, we're going to measure what we measure.
Whatever metric we use, it is going to be gamed.
Yeah, there's at least a risk for it being that it's going to be gamed. So, thoughts and idea of making siege equipment setup time hour or two with invulnerability from ranged attacks, but you can place them only at designated by defender's time. So, yeah, it's basically a forced window where you're open to siege. So what did we talked about that earlier? What did we say? What was the main argument against that?
Yeah, I'm not sure we actually reached a conclusion on that, except that it's kind of ugly. But
it's kind of ugly. You heard the man. So I can make bone marrow from crab shell. I don't think that's right, bro.
That does seem weird. Not sure that's intended.
Yeah, I think crab shell is bone, so I can make bone marrow.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense mechanically, but
yeah, no, I'm not sure we're fans of the forced siege window. How do you feel about forced siege window, chat? Because I'm not. I don't know. Yeah.
I not sure what our formal arguments against it are, except that it's ugly. I think we have more I think we do have better arguments against it than just ugliness, but I mean it's.
It forces you to activity, like at a regular interval.
Like you have to what?
Activity. You have to be logged in to defend your base and shit. So every Thursday at 8 p.m. I have to be in Haven to defend my base because that's where I set my siege window.
Sure.
But I'm not. I don't know. That's difficult because like any siege system is going to put demands on a player's time. I think that's hard to avoid. Like if we have a system where you can siege other players, then arguably, the siege. I'm going to open the window.
Yeah, that seems like a very good idea.
That's gonna just poor man. He's dying. Yeah. He's sitting here in his Santa cap. And
these caps are really hot,
I'm not keen, says Morgan Coxey. It works nice since you can get PvP content in the window is suitable for defenders and guaranteed siege fight for the attackers. Like we have considered this idea before. It's been up like every time we've talked over the siege system, this idea comes up. So I guess it's one of the ideas that we haven't tried, so it has that going for it.
Sure enough.
But I guess like one thing I don't like about it is that it like presents the out of game time scale to the player and makes it relevant to in-game affairs.
Yeah, that's certainly one issue. And
I think that speaks to the it's ugly argument. Like it's ugly that you have to like set a time in real world time.
Sure enough.
And try to
certainly that is certainly one argument against it. I also don't really think we've given up on the present siege system or anything.
Right. How do you feel about present siege system, chat? Doesn't it work better than many others? So what was the problem with the current siege system? Why does it suck?
Because I'm not sure. I think many have complained that the archery towers are overpowered.
Right.
That's an argument I seem to remember.
Because here's the thing, we haven't worked on this for 6 months, so I'm really out of the loop. I have more than 6 months. It's almost a year.
Oh, I think it's 6 months, surely.
No, sure. We did make some changes. So I'm kind of out of the loop. I'm not really sure. Which is one of the things that kind of sucks about systems like that.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's not exactly a system that we will ever be using a lot.
No. Present system doesn't work if people inside at least log in once per day, and you're forced to defend your siege equipment for 24 hours of setup.
Well, I mean, the idea is that you don't have to defend it, 24 hours constantly.
Yeah.
But rather that you perhaps just have to log in once an hour or something.
What if Siege was like asynchronous chess? That is the
core idea of the current system.
Exactly. That is the core idea of the current system. That's precisely where we came from.
Yes.
That's what we would like it to be like.
Exactly.
So, Zenton69 says, what if Presence XP or some sort of auth type system worked to specifically fight the decay of walls? Like instead of feeding a claim shield or having a claim at all, you're actively keeping your walls buffed to make siege harder in a way that would obviously be more difficult to do than just feeding alts in the area.
Well, I mean, the question then, I guess, is how heavily we can rely on the XP system to do that successfully. I mean, it's not like we have no issues with people trying to alt it as this or bot it, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm also not really sure as to how important a well working siege system actually is. I don't know.
Well, somewhat important, I would argue.
Colsey says, most people don't care about siege to begin with. Raiders want to siege easier without giving defenders time to alt vault all of their things, while defenders don't want to have to defend or make it easier to be attacked. One side will be unhappy no matter what direction is taken. That's probably true.
I mean, it's probably true, but what conclusion do you draw from that? I mean, I don't think anyone would like to be in a world where siege is impossible.
Which direction should we take? Snapco asked a pertinent question, asking, what about client rendering, by the way? I hear something about it 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it?
How's client rendering coming, Frederick?
Well, I do feel I'm really close now, to be honest. Now these last days, because of Christmas, I haven't had a lot of opportunity to work on it, but I haven't actually given up on having a test server running before the end of the year.
He has not given up on having a test server running before the end of the year.
I do feel I'm very close now.
To be fair, that was what he said last year as well.
True enough.
But here we are now. Okay, but what's the status of the client running? What can the new client actually do right now?
Mostly everything, I think.
The new client can do mostly everything. So the new client is essentially finished.
I mean, I had some weird issues lately, but I'm not sure what to make of those, and so I'm considering just proceeding past them and see what it turns out like in testing.
I know. Wiley Man says, there is no other option since if you don't choose the in real life time, someone is just raiding you at the 4 a.m. Siege should allow both sides to prepare and to settle the things within an hour or two, so the siege window would be optimal. I don't think I'm not sure I'd buy that. Like an hour or two to get inside of a base that is taken months to establish.
That does seem a bit odd to me.
And have the entire thing just done and settled in 2 hours. That seems wrong to me. that doesn't seem like fun. Like if a base can just be raided in like a 2-hour window because you couldn't have your best optimal fighting strategy show up then. Seems kind of odd. Snapco says, what about some screenshots of new rendering? That should be impossible.
Should it be impossible? I mean, that being said, those screenshots
There's
of
no
the new
difference.
rendering, I mean, it looks insane.
It's not the shadow of a pixel worth of difference.
That's the intention, at least.
Siege in the early years is literally the opposite of what it is now. You have had both extremes. You're giving us mixed signals, boys. Like two women changing your mind every couple of years.
Are we giving you mixed signals? I think we've been pretty consistent on these points.
Exactly, but most women probably think they're consistent as well.
Well, again?
Most women probably think that they're
sure enough. I mean, we have of course tried different things to achieve our objectives, and they have been quite different. But
yeah. So is Siege that different? I suppose it is. Like, I mean, it's different, but I'm not sure
I don't think it's ever been easy to siege someone.
Yeah.
That has not been my impression, at least.
Colsey says, in my opinion, uncommon / difficult sieging is fine if there are incentives for outlawed people to leave their walls and be tracked. At the moment, people just hide inside their walls while outlawed, making frustrations come up about the difficulty of sieging. Yeah, maybe. So maybe
not denying that in and of itself, but there are other issues with sieging as well. I think again, being able to siege, being able to somehow differentiate outposts in order to make them easier to siege, I think would be is a somewhat important thing.
that would be nice. Like if we could make a distinction.
Well, I mean, it's kind of stupid how people like wall in realm cairns and stuff.
Yeah.
Just to make them utterly impossible to destroy.
Sure.
Because sieging is impossible.
Sure.
That's kind of stupid.
Sure. Like, arguably, maybe, like, let's say, because one thing that we've discussed is, like, let's say we have a tiered system where you have a couple of tiers of, like, defensibility of a settlement.
And
so, on the lowest tier, you can, raise the walls and clear the place and...
without siege equipment, basically.
Whatever. And on the highest tier, it'll take weeks or whatever.
And I guess it might be just as it is right now.
Yeah. Let's call now the highest level or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could just make it so that there are a bunch of like arbitrary claims that you have to, or a bunch of arbitrary, marks that you have to tick in order to reach that goal. Like you have to, I don't know, have an oven and a blah 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 and blah 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 built in the base in order to be...
Well, I mean, I think we've more specifically spoken about it in terms of upgrading the walls.
Yeah, sure, but I'm shooting another idea.
Yeah, sure.
Like, what would that be? Zenta69 says it went from being a weekly occurrence to like 2-3 major sieges per world.
Or really? Was it ever a weekly occurrence?
In World 3, any noob could ram into a major base if somebody was unlucky enough to not see the ram. In current world, nobody sieges because fuck siege.
Yeah, but is that a good mechanic though? They happen to be unlucky to not see the ram. Is that really a fun mechanic?
Yeah, arguably not, right? Like it seems dumb. Like we added these explicit warnings to siege equipment, and I do think that's the right way to go.
Mm-hmm. Because the ones who weren't getting siege were the ones who had the correct bolt operations up and running with bots patrolling the village. And,
that seems dumb.
That's kind of stupid.
This is my point. Mixed signals. Yeah, I mean, but
we never thought this was not dumb.
That was. I think the problem of people not seeing the rams and that being like an incentive to siege, or like the thing that made the siege system quote unquote work.
It was not intentional.
It's just it wasn't intentional. It's just a broken mechanic.
Yeah.
Like it's just dumb. Like, it wasn't our intention to send any particular signal by that. They didn't run their ram check bot that night exactly, and that just seems like completely off.
Mm-hmm.
Holy Ass Secundus says unpopular opinions. Shields would have been a great system with some small tweaks.
That's what people think about legacy combat too.
Just some small tweaks and it would have been perfect. It's gonna be a big yikes for me, bro, buddy. But yeah, like some sort of tier to it, upgrading the walls or upgrading the claim, or like paying a higher upkeep cost or something to make a claim more real, and maybe also make it so that there's a timer to how fast you can make a claim quote unquote real. So you have to live there for a while and actually use it for a while,
probably,
so that you can't just overnight upgrade what was before pristine virgin land into like
a fortress,
a well-established fortress. That could perhaps be a good idea. That way, like, main bases would be secure, but siege camps wouldn't be.
I mean, I would hope so, at least.
Or, one can dream.
Yeah.
But I don't think that doesn't sound too unrealistic to me. Like, that doesn't sound like just a pipe dream. Like, I think that's a system that you could probably implement.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe that could be a solution. Tiering the siege levels more.
Mm-hmm. That has been the intention, at least.
But, that being said, any serious settlement is arguably going to have, the highest tier.
Yeah, exactly.
But it could make it harder to, like, maintain shit claims on, just natural resources and stuff of that nature.
Yes, I mean, presumably, at least, I think higher levels of walls or whatever this that are upgraded should at least require higher upkeep in terms of authority and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that being said, that might create incentives to have 100 bolt-odds studying curiosities or whatever, but...
Cozy TV says, I'm still holding hope for legacy combat tweaks in Legacy. We do still spar there, by the way. So, yeah.
I wouldn't hold my hopes for that.
I wouldn't hold my breath. So. Phalanix says one of the big problems of Siege is the fact that they are boring as fuck. Rarely any fighting is happening. I think you need to like a set window where a village can be attacked and blah blah blah. There we go with that idea again. Yeah, but I mean, like a village can be attacked. I don't know what does that mean. Like, the problem is that if you can penetrate the walls, there's no end to the amount of damage you can do to a base. And like, so with a well-established
either
base,
that or you get the incentive to build 31 layers of wall.
Yeah. So with a well-established base, I don't think there's any situation where it's really desirable that you should be able to like break into a well-established year-old base within an hour or two. I think that's just that doesn't seem right to me. Is that right? This is 2020. Nobody should be allowed to penetrate without consent. Exactly. Has Me Too taught us nothing? I'm joking. That was a joke. It was a dumb joke. No, I don't know. It just seems like I mean I get it. Like, okay, so you want the combat, you want the siege to be an opportunity to actually have some heart chest pumping combat type situation, and the problem is that it's boring.
I mean, arguably, this is also kind of what we had in Salem, I think.
Yeah, where you could break into a base, within an hour or so.
Well, I mean, but in particular, the trials by fire and stuff did establish a kind of siege window.
Sure, I suppose, but you could, arguably, but it was the attacker who built them, so like the siege window could be opened at any time.
Yeah, sure, but it's still a siege window.
Sure.
I also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I also think we had some mechanic for the defender to adjust it.
Yeah, there were mechanics with that. Interesting thought, maybe. Maybe what if the dynamic there were actually inversed? What if, like, okay, so every so often you have to rejuvenate your claim.
Okay.
And in order to do that, you have to perform some ritual, which takes time. And while you do that, your kind of your defensiveness is lessened somehow. Like walls are easier to break into or whatever.
Okay.
So the claim offers less protection while being rejuvenated. And every so often you have to rejuvenate it. And you're the one who takes the initiative as to when the claim should be rejuvenated, when you should go through that cycle. That's actually a good idea, isn't it? Like,
perhaps.
It could be.
Perhaps.
Because then, it's up to the attacker to like be on the lookout for that.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Like, let's say you scout a place and you check it every day in order to, because they have to rejuvenate it at some point for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once they do, you're there. But they're the ones taking the initiative. Like, they're the ones setting the time.
Perhaps.
And that they have a lot of, freedom as to when they should initiate.
Not necessarily a bad idea.
That could be a good idea, right, chat? Right, chat? Who's doing the thinking, right? Like, have a thinking cap on and everything. What do you think about that one, chat? Zentat69 says, that's a cool idea, to be honest. Yeah, I think so, too. I think that's
an interesting idea.
It is.
I think we should perhaps explore it.
Yeah. Any idea is better than the current siege system. Pog. What does pog mean?
What does pog mean?
Delamore 1 says, been a while since hello, Delamore, if that's truly you. Been a while since I followed this project. Are you guys working on this full time, and does the game support that financially?
Somewhat, at least.
Somewhat, at least, yeah. So it's pretty darn close. Like, this was a good year for us. So.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still make it better by signing to the shop and getting one of the new cool hats we have. So, but no, this was a good year for us, and so yeah.
It certainly was.
Yeah.
Is that actually Delamore from Salem? It's been a while for sure.
He played Legacy. He was
Did he play Legacy too? Really?
Sure, he played that. Well, that was what he played.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only remember him from Salem.
Not a bad idea. Same stream, blah blah blah, over and over again. Same stream. We're discussing the same issues. We still have the same issues. So like, I don't know what else you expect me to stream about. Like, when we're streaming about Haven, we're talking about Haven's issues, and those have been constant since 2009.
That is pretty much true.
There's nothing new there.
Siege and combat.
But I had a good new idea here. I think I kind of like the new idea. That and some tiers. Like, let's say there are tiers, and let's say you have to rejuvenate the claim every so often. And could be something.
Could be something.
To be fair, glad you get to chase your dream while not being forced to do things on the side. We're doing something on the side, I'd argue, or at least I am right now, and I think maybe you are going to. So it's not been like.
Not sure about that, but
not sure about that. Okay. Weren't you gonna finish your?
Yeah, sure. I'm considering that.
So, but yes, it is nice. Haven is nice.
Haven is nice.
Haven is nice.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
There are some difficult issues with it for sure.
Yeah, it's a very, like, from a game design perspective, this is one of the hardest types of games you could be developing.
I wouldn't. I mean, without
playing hard mode.
Without boasting, I think I do think that is the case.
This is hard.
There have certainly been times when we've just considered going and then doing some single player game instead because it's just so much easier.
It's so much easier.
You don't have to care if anyone cheats.
Yeah. Okay, so you don't have to care if anyone cheats. You don't have to maintain an online environment with real people interacting with it, and testing your systems in various ways, and you don't have to like. First and foremost, a player who doesn't like the way his game is developing can just click new game.
Yep.
In a single player game. We can't support that feature here for reasons that may be obvious, and and you get away with a lot of mechanics like like in an RPG game you can have an actual game where you play the loot or whatever.
Balance just isn't at all.
Yeah.
The important thing that it is here.
No, but it's not just balance. It's also that you can you can do skill tests on the player's ability to twitch or whatever. Which we can't really like. You can make a game like Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
We can't make Guitar Hero for Haven because that's just asking for a bot.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of mechanics.
To be sure, we actually did consider making Guitar Hero once upon a while.
Yeah, we did, but realized that it was a botable problem.
Yes.
So like a lot of the challenges that you can throw at people in normal games don't work in this environment.
Yeah.
So it's
which is definitely part of the troubles we're having with the combat system, mind you.
Yeah, definitely. So Delmore says, I've been following multiple games that try this style over the years, and it just seems like it's almost like an unsolved math problem. Yeah, no, I agree.
It probably is.
It probably is. That's a good analogy. It is a hard game to figure out, like the persistent world type, blah blah blah, open combat, etc.
Then again, of course, that is what makes the endeavor so worthwhile, also because
that's what definitely I wouldn't
it's not just trivial to make like a single player game.
Exactly. Anyone could make a great single player game.
Am I right?
Calls regarding the rejuvenation mechanic, I suppose. He said, would it be a visual clue? Could an alt stay logged on and track /report claim status?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it would mean that you'd have to monitor, have a bot monitor the claim 24/7.
In order to get the exact timing of when they go through their rejuvenate. Well, I mean, maybe that's fine though.
I mean, if you're running a large faction aiming to invade your opponent anyway, it doesn't really make a difference if you're running a bot to inspect it every 5 minutes or
exactly. I mean, I would assume that you're running a bot to check your enemy in that case. But that wasn't really the bot thing wasn't really the main point. The main point of the idea was to take Salem's trial by fire type mechanic and invert it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that the defender is the one who takes the initiative, rather than the attacker.
Mm.
That I think was the key takeaway of the idea.
Okay.
Snapco says, what about changing rare resource acquisition by standing within designated zone for some time so you can reliably PvP with people for it? Well, we tried that, but no one liked it, so we kind of changed it back. We had that long ass timer on Natural Wonders.
Well, we still have a timer on it.
Yeah, but it's not long ass like it used to be.
I mean, arguably, I have questioned why we even have it at all now.
No, and that was my intention last time we changed it, was actually to remove it completely.
Okay, so why didn't we then?
No, it's a good question. We could probably do that. One thing I noticed, says Colsey, more so while testing the new combat system, was how much you click while moving around. Would this game be able to support the Diablo-style movement where you can hold down left click? Maybe not. Maybe not.
I mean, it's kind of weird given the implementation. I mean, it would effectively be the same as clicking 10 times a second.
No. Videos of Haven fights, you can hear spam clicking while watching the video. Well, it's probably true.
It is true in and of itself, but I also felt when we were testing it, like I'm not sure it's really necessary to click that often.
Morgan Coxey says, I prefer to be a hermit, a jack of all trades, so that I can craft. I want to be able to understand and use combat to hunt and be able to defend myself. I have no interest in sieging anyone. Not everyone is a warrior, as long as there's a reasonable way to maintain my security and claim that's what's important to me. It's not fun if I have to worry if everything I've been done can be ruined in 3 real-life days of not being able to log in. Not everyone is or wants to be a warrior. No, true. You go play another game. This game is not for you. Okay. No, that's true, and that's I guess part of the challenge, making it balanced so that it feels like relevant. Or I mean, being siege is never going to be fun, at least for the probably not at least for the person being siege. So it's never going to be fun for them. But I think part of the charm of the multiplayer environment like this is also that you can have like adverse experiences where people are mean to you. Like I think that's one of the
kind of the point, at least.
Kind of the point, like not saying it in a masochistic way, but like that's a part of the thrill of the game.
Yeah.
Like you have a pretty unique thrill when you meet other dangerous looking, mean looking men in Haven. That gives me I've had several run-ins with people where my heart actually started racing because they were like I had an intense combat type experience, and that was fun. So
exactly.
Granted, having your base leveled may be a bit much for most people.
Yeah, sure enough, but I mean, we can't really have the contrary case where you can siege people away. Yeah. At least.
Snail says the solution to the above problem is to join a village.
That too.
But I guess I love this game, says Morgan Cox. Glad to hear it. I was only joking. Of course, it's a game for you. I'm glad. Thank you. I'm glad you like it.
But I mean, that's a good question, also, isn't it? I mean, to what extent should the game try to force you into a social structure?
Yeah, I don't know. Try to force you. None, but like provide incentives, or there are going to be natural incentives to be in a village. There already are.
Yeah, sure, but it could be trying even harder to incentivize you to do that.
Sure. I don't know. I don't want to play in a village. Like I just want to do my own thing. I want to play as a.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree.
Actually, Morgan Coxey's playstyle is my playstyle.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it is mine too. But I have sometimes questioned whether the game, how strongly the game should really be supporting that.
Snapco says, yeah, but no one likes hold the point to get rare resources with old combat system. If you think out of old combat system box and apply a new one to this idea, standing and holding point without area effect based non-target attack is actually just a nice fit to new combat system. Just needs more opportunities and incentives to fight and not run away. So if you run away, you lose the fight in value. So I think
I'm not sure I get what he's writing.
I think the key takeaway there is probably that the new combat system would work well in a situation where you're more incentivized to stand and fight for something like a meteor or the like, and that we should try to incentivize that more. And that would be the new box that we should be thinking out of. I think that's what he's saying. Oftentimes I have to act as an interpreter or middleman between the end users and the more rarefied mind of Loftar. Question, says Cozy. In Legacy, why did you stop handing out the staff dev items after a certain world? I don't think any were handed out after World 5+.
I don't think that was a conscious decision, at least for sure.
I
mean, if anything, we've mainly been awarding dev items for people who, report bugs that they might otherwise have incentive to not report to us.
Yeah.
And there haven't perhaps been many of those since World 5.
There have been plenty of those since World 5. There have been plenty of wall jumps and all kinds of crazy shit.
There's one. I don't think we've fixed many of those since we started working on Salem.
Oh, Dude, no. We fixed several. There have been
Yeah,
several.
in New Haven, but in Legacy.
Oh, in Legacy, no.
That's in Legacy what he was talking about.
Right, but like, yeah, why? Yeah, I don't know. What is the question? Why we're not handing them out in Legacy?
That was how I read it.
No, I think the question is, it was pink capes forever. I don't know. Maybe we handed out more in Legacy. I don't know. Maybe
in Legacy, why did you stop handing out the staff dev items?
I don't know. I don't know.
And I would argue that is the reason.
Finigini says, frantic movement in H&H is like playing Terran in StarCraft. Our wrists are going to explode one day. Are Terrans more like actions per minute oriented than the other races in StarCraft 2? I was not aware of that in my case. Are Terrans particularly hard on the wrists? Are Zerg not as hard on the wrists?
That being said, I also don't really get that argument. I mean, do people who play FPSs all day have wrists that only last a week?
They don't have to click as often. They just have
Is clicking a bigger issue than swiping the mouse around?
I think so. You have to activate like the finger muscle in order to do that. I don't know. Maybe it's harder on. I have no idea. I've never had any mouse arm issues myself, so I've never had a problem with it.
Me neither. Actually, I did have one of those a couple of years ago. I'm not sure it was actually caused by mouse usage, but I had an infection in one of the sinews,
right,
in the wrist. It was actually really painful. I could hardly even type.
Damn. Yeah, I remember that actually.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was a long time ago actually, but still.
Terrans are mechanically demanding. Apparently, I haven't played enough StarCraft 2. Apparently, I was like. Have you played StarCraft 2 at all?
I actually did get it working the other year or so.
Right.
So I played through at least most of the Terran campaign.
Whoops! I just dropped all the darn chat messages.
Oops.
Sorry, because that sucked. Because I reloaded the chat. Sorry, boot. I think I still have it here. So. Sorry about that. There we go. Well, it should be working again. No, nothing of value was lost. I have it all here. Snapco says, I like the new combat system so much, and the only reason it was scrapped is that people run away and you can't chase. But you can resolve the problem with other means instead of just adding gap closing skills. If a person wants to run away and permanent the game, let him do so, but he loses what he came for. Yeah, I don't think it's just that. It's also like it creates a very strange dynamic even between people who want to fight. It's not just that it allows people to run away. It allows anyone who suddenly decides that he doesn't want to be a part of the combat.
Yeah, exactly.
To disengage from it, which is.
I mean, like if you are, even if you are two people fighting each other and you really want to fight each other, when one of those people starts to feel that he's losing, then he has no reason to remain.
Exactly. And that's where flight and pursuit is going to enter into any fight.
Mm-hmm.
Any fight will have flight and pursuit. So, Snuggle Snail asks, is there any plan to revert low B12 HHP damage or not having rage making you immortal? Arbitrarily not being able to kill 95% of the player base has made the game a lot less fun for
me. Was removing the knob killing aspect making the game a lot less enjoyable for you? Because I'm not sure that is a great loss, to be honest.
Cozy says, I would say combat interaction puts you into a combat stance that changes movement speeds. But that incentivizes using alts to stay out of combat and body block
Exactly. That was our take on that as well.
Instance fights would help with that, but that's a whole different thing.
That is certainly a wholly different thing.
I don't know. Is there any plans to revert the whole arbitrarily not being able to kill people thing? Or is that staying in? I'm not.
I don't know. I mean, it's not like I'm in any way wed to the current mechanic.
No.
I'm not. I'm not sure that any of the obvious alternatives are better either.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of. I don't know. For starters, I'm not sure I like the whole B12 cleaving can kill people, but nothing else can. I'm not sure I like that dynamic to begin with.
Certainly.
Because it's just kind of strange and ugly. That being said, I'm also not sure I'm much of a fan of the change where to rage, where like buying and having rage makes you unable to teleport away from combat after being knocked out. I don't know.
Well, I mean, what would be the alternative though?
And he has to, doesn't he have to like that? Isn't that a good change? Like, didn't that provide for more combat for people who actually want it? Wasn't that the intention of adding that?
One would perhaps like to think so. But I mean, what would be the alternative again? Having everyone be protected or having no one be protected?
I suspect that the alternative he wants is having no one be protected, but he'd have to.
I mean, the main issue for me about that mechanic, I think, is that I've always disliked how the only possible outcome of combat is that one party dies. There's never any. There is never any lesser outcome where both parties survive.
But that was the whole thinking behind being allowed to teleport home.
Yeah.
Was that there should be other outcomes.
Yes.
However, there aren't. Because you just get wounds that you just heal up instantly, more or less, or like really.
Yeah, but I mean, if that's the only issue, then that could be leveraged as a criticism of the wound system. That wounds should be more serious, and that has actually been one of my arguments for a long time now, that ancient roots are too powerful.
I don't think the problem are ancient roots primarily. I think that the primary problem probably, like, I don't know. I think there's a good case to be made that wounds that you receive in PvP combat should be generally more dangerous, or generally more like.
Yeah, but as long as ancient roots work the way they do, they can never be.
There's a finite supply of ancient roots.
They may be finite, but I think it's great enough. Perhaps we should lessen it.
I think it's good that the ancient roots are good and valuable, and I also think that.
Yeah, but perhaps we should lessen the supply then.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Like. I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, if the problem is that you can't get enough wounds in combat, then surely ancient roots are the problem.
No. The other treatments are equally effective. The problem.
No, they aren't. They aren't instant.
No, but come on. Like, there's no wound that you really need ancient wounds to heal. Roots.
Well, I mean,
or rather, there are, but like
certainly, but
not ones.
But if it weren't for ancient roots, you could be out of combat for a month or two.
Maybe if you get like wretched gore
to the
nth degree, but I don't know about that. Snapco says maybe create a zone around PvP incentive, and if you leave that after entering, you basically give up your ability to PvP with honorless pussy debuff. Yeah. If you Snuggle Snail says if you're not using 100% of your ancient roots on bum burn, you feel very bad about it. See, that's what they're good for.
Perhaps
treating bum burn. That's what Snuggle Snail is.
Then we know what he does in his spare time, don't we?
Eat pepper all day, every day.
But where were we?
We were talking about ancient roots and wounds, and
there was something else in the meantime, I think. Oh well.
What herb level did you set on the Elven Lights? I haven't seen it.
Oh well, that's because it isn't night.
Oh right, the elves are only out at night, but it is night now.
No, that's the day sky.
That's true, but the moon is rising.
The moon is rising, yes, but it hasn't turned.
But it has not risen.
Night. That's true.
Delmore asks, is there a roadmap or an overarching goal / plan, or is it still mostly just alliterative? It's not an alliterative process, it's an iterative process, world to world. It's an iterative process, but that being said, it's not that we don't have goals.
Exactly.
One of the goals that we had recently was the combat system rework.
Yes,
I think
exactly.
The client rendering thing has been blocking the pipe for a long while now.
Indeed.
And we're hoping that we're getting places with that.
Mm-hmm.
But and then the next item on my itinerary, at least, is object-controlled objects. That's the big ticket item that I would like to have.
Yes, I think I agree with that.
So, and object-controlled objects is a system that we've been talking about for quite a while. Most of your perhaps familiar with it, but the general idea is that objects should be able to run sort of a local map of their own,
Exactly. Something like that.
but still in the real world.
Yeah.
So you would get rid of pocket worlds for houses, and instead you could actually enter the house.
Yes, exactly.
Still
and
be
also
in the world.
do such things as build bridges and walk on walls and have actual ships that you can walk.
Ships that you can walk on, bridges that you can walk on.
And perhaps particularly also some kind of architecture system.
Exactly,
where you
and
can build more custom houses.
the next system after that, or the next major implementation after that, would be a free-form building system, where you can create arbitrary buildings rather than having these prefab constructs that I provided.
Exactly.
So engine improvements then, or engine expansion. Yeah, I guess you could call it that, but I mean, this is not. I don't know. The reason we make that particular engine expansion would be to provide more gameplay, because I think freeform building could provide a lot of fun gameplay.
Yeah.
So
to be sure.
Freeform building is definitely a 2-year project. Hopefully not.
Hopefully not, indeed. I think we aren't exactly decided on how freeform building should work, though.
No.
But I think that's also because it's hard to decide on those details before we have object-controlled objects.
Snapco says, I would take anything but freeform building, taking development time. So it's a vote against freeform building.
I see. Too bad for him then.
Too bad for him, yeah. Because I personally, I think that a good freeform building system is like something that Haven should excel at.
Yes, exactly.
Presently, it does not.
Exactly. I mean,
and that's cancer. So
yes,
that needs to.
It really is something that Haven has no excuse for not having.
Yeah. And I mean, a freeform building system has been on the cards since like the first iteration of Haven. In Legacy, exactly. There are still old wall resources that you can use to build walls.
That we can place with the gold menu.
Exactly. So there are a lot of good reasons why we would want a freeform building system. So when alchemy and better medicines. I think the conclusion of our previous discussion was that medicines should not be better, but rather than wounds should be more terrifying. I don't know, alchemy. What would you want to be able to do with alchemy?
Exactly. Alchemy doesn't really tell us much.
Yeah. But then another system that we talked about is having a conversation system for quest givers would be fun.
Certainly. Then, I mean, I also do think that one of the problems with the game that we really would like to solve is the problem of autarky.
Sure. Or more generally, perhaps that, I don't know, the game doesn't always lift as a multiplayer environment as much as it perhaps could.
Exactly.
Like there's not enough, and I think one argument there are not enough sinks for resources, and perhaps that's a good argument for removing hunger. But I don't know. I don't know. Removing autarky, yeah, maybe removing autism. Maybe, I don't know, removing autarky. So basically you're saying that the main problem is that everyone is self-sufficient in their own bases. And,
I mean, to some extent, at least, surely. I mean, I do think that a game like this should much more heavily encourage such activities as trading.
Sure. But trading...
And I do think that autarky is one of the main things standing against that.
I think one of the main things standing against trading, you know what I think one of the main things standing against trading is? I think one of the main things is not being able to handle the volumes of items that would make trading meaningful.
Perhaps there's some case to be made for that too. But
like I think like if you wanted people to trade for sure, for serious, for reals, I think they would have to be able to like easily transfer vast amounts of stuff. I think that's an argument. Something blueberries. Yeah, exactly. Something blueberries. I think that's probably one of the things that makes trading hard. And also like arguably not enough sinks, like not enough reason to have like infinite bone or infinite wood or infinite anything. You run into like a lack of need at some point. There's no like that's the reason you're.
Yeah, certainly, but I mean that's a good question for sure. That is something that is a bit that can be a bit conflicting, so to speak. I mean the thing is, if if you have something that you can consume an infinite amount of, there is certainly I mean, as long as there is strong water key in the game, there is also a strong incentive to just bot that infinitely.
Sure.
Instead.
Sure. No, definitely. Like sinks incentivize bots for sure. So and we could debate where that argument leads ultimately. Perhaps not to a good place, but then again, perhaps to a good place. Like,
who knows, perhaps.
I mean, put it this way: like if 1,000 people were running 1,000 bots in the game, that's a sign they care about the game, right? I mean, that's a sign that they're invested in the game.
Yeah, sure enough, but that doesn't mean it's fun.
No, arguably not, but I don't know. What would a medieval feudal setting be like without serfs?
Well, I mean, perhaps, but
or even Dark Age, I think.
But it would perhaps be more fun if those serfs were people you could interact with.
Sure, but I think I don't know. Yeah, botting is a huge discussion that we have every stream, so
for sure.
Delmore says another problem I saw lots of worlds ago though was that anything that was worth trading you would eventually take over your own. So if you needed a high quality clay, you took over a spot of it after maybe a short period of trading.
Yeah, but that's pretty much what I mean by autarky.
Yeah. Zenton69 says make most local resources move on a regular basis and have more randomly occurring unpredictable resources pop up. Make some resources legit rare and legit random. Maybe. Yeah. I'm not.
Not necessarily opposed to that. I just
nothing is tradable because everybody can get everything.
Yeah, that's what I mean by autarky.
Sure, that's a good argument. But there's also the case that like even if we we've been over that before as well. It's hard. There's definitely a design challenge in coming up with items that can reward the player in meaningful and fun ways without being broken.
Yes.
So and be like significant rewards as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, how much effort would you invest in a good curiosity? So like you can always replace it with a like medium curiosity and it would still be okay for you.
Mm-hmm.
So how good do we have to make a curiosity for it to be like worth trading over or worth fighting over or worth like can a curiosity be a significant enough of a reward? Maybe it's just a balance issue, like maybe at some point, but like I don't know, if we had 30 variously random type curios, then doesn't that devalue the total set of them as well?
Yeah, there's certainly a case to be made. It's difficult to be honest.
Yeah. This comes back to the hunger meter. Trading for food is crippled when quality and type of food matters so much. Newbie food isn't worth eating because it lowers hunger percentage. Yeah, I mean that's a good argument.
I'm not necessarily denying that's true.
Yeah, that is. I think that to be fair, I think that's a good argument against the hunger meter.
Certainly.
So, Snapco says, do you think it's possible that we will see changes made to current siege system before next world? Certainly it's possible. I'm not sure. Ooh, there we go. Elven Lights, y'all. Certainly is possible. I'm not sure what those changes would be. Like, I don't have like siege changes that I'm, dying to push. So I don't know what the changes would be. Like, if we have good changes or good like siege change ideas, then we could certainly go for it. But I'm not sure what those would be.
Not immediately, at least.
Ooh.
That being said, it's not like we didn't discuss some good ideas tonight, I think.
Yeah, presumably. But your chance of getting it is based on the varied actions you do in that area. So a guy who only does one action but bots it gets none, while a player who plays more naturally and finds himself doing lots of tasks is more likely to be rewarded those resources.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much what the XP system does.
Yeah, the experience system does something very similar in determining who gets experience stats. So here we go, Elven Lights. They are probably not the greatest as curiosities, I think.
But that also wasn't perhaps their primary intention.
Exactly. So this is some strange vine the elves have been placing in the various trees, and right now they work for at least spruce and silver fir and fir. Arguably, we could add them for more trees down the road.
But I'm not sure which ones that would reasonably be.
maybe juniper, maybe yew, arguably.
Perhaps.
Sky's the limit. Any tree could have them eventually.
Well, I mean, sure, but I'm not sure like deciduous trees should.
Maybe not, but like if you look in real life, the elves put up such lights in deciduous trees as well.
Do they?
Of course.
I've never seen that.
Haven't you been around the like suburbia outside here with the little white picket fenced houses and whatnot? They all have little lights in the trees. Surely elves did that.
Oh, sure, right. I guess there's a case to be made, perhaps.
Are you telling me you have never seen an elf in real life?
No, of course not.
Pear, of course, yeah. Pear trees should definitely have them. Oh, another thing we were talking about was to remake or rather, pretty much nuke/remove the metal spiraling.
Right, we were talking about that.
Because I think we arrived at the conclusion that it's pretty retarded how the hammer and ammo quality influences all the.
Yeah, right. What was the concrete idea though? Was it just to? What was the concrete idea again? To not have the hammer and anvil raise the quality of the metal?
Exactly. Snuggles says, "Yes, Jorb."
Okay. For what? For nuking metal spiraling.
Frick metal spiraling, he says.
Okay.
He's not.
I was under the impression that many actually liked that mechanic.
So there's no argument to be made, Snuggle, that they provide like a good incentive to grind cast iron and make it tradable and blah blah blah. No good argument for that. Kevermec says a good way to sync items is to make rare curios valuable by adding them into important crafts. Stuff like weird beetroot, heart of darkness, four-leaf clovers, perfect hole, and more curios like that can be used in alchemy for powerful potions, for permanent or temporary effects like speed buff. That could also sell. Some argument, perhaps.
Some argument, perhaps, but I would be wary to make too much of potion swelling in the game.
Sure. What you got again? Snuggles. So what's the great argument? Why is it removing it a good idea? Golden egg can become a Fabergé egg. That's good. If I had a legit golden egg laid by a golden goose, I would not turn that into a Fabergé egg. That seems like a downgrade to me.
If that is the only way to produce a Fabergé egg.
Yeah, well, sure, that's true. Then I would for sure. That would be an upgrade. That's a pretty cool piece of lore with the gilded goose who lays the golden eggs. Colsey TV says metal spiraling is one of the indices that are strongly lauded because of the sheer amount of bars that are needed. Some enjoy it, I'm sure, but most do it out of necessity, out of a feeling that they need to keep up.
Well, if that's the case, then.
When I was a part of the spiral in one of the earlier worlds, it just felt so strange. Like it seemed like everything in our village would be improved by this one process, and the process wasn't actually fun.
Oh, okay, if that's the general consensus, then.
So if there's consensus, then yeah, definitely going away then. Because
I think your main argument in favor of metal spiraling was that it actually creates trade for cast iron.
Yeah, that's been my as a noob, that's been my like key enjoyment of it, because I could always sell cast iron bars for gold, but I could definitely see that the incentives are unsound. And under any circumstance, I think when we looked at how it's actually implemented, I think it's just retarded that the hammer and the anvil have that kind of an influence on the end product. I think that's.
I mean, speaking of popular ideas, another mechanic we were discussing at the same time was tool wear.
Yeah, we did consider that, making it so that like, if you craft an item of quality inferior to your tool loses like 1 point of quality.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you feel about that, Chad? Like it? Yeah, could be fun. Okay, so the argument for that would be that I think it's kind of dumb that in order to like upgrade or whatever, you only need to get a good anvil once, exactly. And then you're done forever. So like when I find a good hammer, Smithy's hammer, in some base that I'm raiding, then I'm set forever and I can throw away any old hammer.
Exactly, that's been a similar feeling to what I've had when I like find a good saw in an old base that I'm exploring.
The old one becomes just useless, and there's no.
And I have no reason or need to ration my use of the new saw.
Yeah,
that's just my daily driver from then on to forever.
Yeah, and that feels a bit unsound. Colsey says, cast iron sink can be done in better ways, like for wall upgrading or decent curio. Steel is also always a thing, so it's not like cast is useless without spiraling. Yeah. Zenta69 says, if you use a hammer and anvil too much, you should get injuries that make your hammering ability worse. Let's be realistic, you can't just hammer forever, you're going to lose.
Isn't that a good question, though? I mean, that I have long wanted there to be like small use-based wounds for everything,
yep.
Like the current bee stings.
Yep. But it's dumb.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's the problem, though. That just makes everyone alt wax harvesting and whatnot.
Yep.
But I would like there to be that. I mean, it has been my wish that the wound screen should never be empty.
Yeah.
But obviously there is the contrary incentive then to just alt everything, which is kind of stupid.
It is, isn't it? And that's what's going to be the effect. So, like,
I mean, that being said, though, it's not like you can necessarily alt smithing because you actually need to have a somewhat good character for that.
Sure. And I think, like, if you're going to have use-based wounds, I think you need to put them behind bars, so to speak, because otherwise the alt incentive is
exactly. Strong. I mean, arguably, wax harvesting should perhaps be quality capped by farming.
That's probably true. See, we work for you. We work hard for you every day, coming up with good ideas, solid implementations. For stuff that's gonna make the game more fun for everyone. You know, on that issue, like I don't implement wounds because I enjoy making the game harder or more difficult. A lot of people seem to like genuinely dislike wounds. I think wounds are fun.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean honestly, wounds are one of the mechanics that I enjoy the most when playing the game.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I find when I get knocked out of some beaver dungeon or whatever, and I have this crazy wound list of a bunch of wounds.
I feel exactly the same.
Wounds are fun, says the two guys who log on once a month. Hey, I log on more often. Fuck you. But like, don't you see the point that I'm trying to make though? Like, if there are no challenges in the game, then it won't be fun, right? Mm-hmm. Like a game without challenge is not fun, right?
Right, surely.
Hey, look, we can go tell Dranigan of our exploits in gaining 4 points of will.
Oh,
let us. I love when it hurts. Wounds aren't a challenge, says Snugglefin. Not to you, because you're an elite player, but to a new player, or to...
I mean, why not, though? Why aren't wounds a challenge? Are the medicines just too strong, or...
Yeah, that's a good question also. Colsey TV says, this game challenges my patience in many ways already. What would those ways be? Tell me more about your challenge, about the challenges to your... Where's Dranigan? Is he all way off and... Yeah, there he is. Okay, I don't think we're going to make it to Dranigan. We have 2 minutes left of the stream. We're going to head for Dranigan. And this is the participation trophy generation. I don't think challenges are thought of as being fun anymore. That's boomer stuff. Damn, we're being outed as boomers. I don't think the boomer generation is known for their affinity for challenges.
Exactly.
I think that's one of the pertinent critiques of the boomer generation is precisely that they're not up for challenge. Isn't it?
So who's the boomer now?
Yeah, so who's the boomer now? I turned the boomer table back on you, boomer. Okay, boomer. Boomers gave the try. Boomers want the youth to feel challenged. That's the boomer way. Yeah, exactly. Boomers want millennials or people younger to have challenge. They don't actually want any challenges themselves. Right? Am I right? Boomer hating? We do boomer hating now? Some of my best friends are boomers. I'm a boomer. We're all boomer. I'm a spiritual boomer. I think the okay boomer meme is kind of fun. Okay boomer. Don't the boomers deserve a chance to win too? I don't know. Main auditory of Haven is boomers. Yeah, that's probably true. This game is too hardcore for the young, weak generation. Okay, let's... Ooh, high above you. Cold, unforgiving, and eternal rises a tall peak of the mountain, grasping after even the clouds and stars themselves. Some beautiful ass poetry right there, sir. Who wrote that? What genius of a man wrote that? I think we're gonna. Can I make it to Drowning? It's probably not too far, right? It's a couple of minutes.
I mean, if we are talking about games leveraging unreasonable challenges on players, I actually quite enjoyed playing through Zelda 2 the last year or so.
Yeah, and that's definitely there's a wolf pack right there. I'm gonna steer well clear of that. Yeah, that's a good case to be made. And what did you think of it? Was it fun?
I mean, the thing is, the one of the critiques I've seen about it is that it's stupid how it forces you to restart the game every time you die. But that was, I mean, and yes, it is frustrating, but that is also one of the reasons why I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
Because few other games have made me feel so strongly when I get to the boss that this is it now.
Right.
And it really makes me pumped.
Right.
Few other games have made me feel that so strongly as Zelda 2.
There's definitely I have fond memories of playing a game called Rygar, which was kind of like an RPG exploration type game, for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it was kind of buggy and dumb, but it wasn't a Nintendo classic Nintendo hard. Like if you died, you died.
Yeah.
And you had to start over. So I have fond memories of playing that when I was a kid, because there's definitely something to be said for Nintendo hard type games.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, precisely for the reason cited, that it makes it that much more significant when you actually beat the final boss. Or
yeah, exactly.
They like arguably even in like a Mario game or whatever. Like most Mario games aren't particularly difficult, I guess, but like there's still a thing. Like if you lose your whatever it is 3 one-ups, then you die. You have to start over.
Well, at least.
Yeah.
That was the case in like Super Mario 1.
Yeah, sure. That's not the case anymore. We're past that now. that's not how Mario works now. When you die in Mario now, you lose 10 points. You get to restart the level. So.
Well, I mean, my point perhaps being that even Super Mario World isn't particularly punishing.
No, it isn't.
Arguably, even Super Mario 3 isn't.
No, you're probably right. Cozy wants us to develop more seasonal content.
Sure enough, there is perhaps some kind of case to be
Cozy
made.
TV that seasons were plunked into the game without much rhyme or reason to why they are there. Each season should have its own strengths, weaknesses. If you had certain crops, mobs,
you were just walking past your quest giver.
Here we go. Here we are. I agree with you, Cozy. We should probably flesh out the season.
I mean, that being said, I'm not sure I dislike autumn that much at all.
No, I like autumn. Isn't autumn pretty good, Cozy?
Surely autumn is pretty good. Spring is perhaps somewhat lackluster, but
yeah,
I would assume the greatest problem, if anything, is winter.
Yeah, winter, definitely. I hate to be like arguing against Nintendo hard, but I think there should probably be like at least one crop that you can grow in winter. Like, I don't know, winter wheat.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like that wouldn't make sense at all, but
turnips or something. All right. Well, we have reached my quest giver. We're going to report back. And with that, I think we're going to call it a night. And we're also going to call it a year, because we're going to log out for rest and recuperation. And unless you manage to set up a test server client for the new client before the new year, this will be like the last you hear from us this side of the decade.
Indeed.
So it's been an interesting year. We had a good world reset.
It's been an interesting decade.
It's been an interesting decade for sure. It's been an interesting year, an interesting decade, and yeah, I don't know, interesting world reset, interesting developments after that. I'm pretty pumped for a new year. I feel like this one has exhausted itself, so I'm pretty pumped to start on a fresh, clean slate with the next year, and hopefully we can make a good difference for the game now and forever. So yeah.
We should hope so.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts, or are we just going to send the boys and girls off with a very Merry Christmas?
Nothing exactly bubbling up.
Santa, bring me new sieges. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, and a very happy New Year to all of you and all of yours. And thank you so much for being with us and for supporting the game and for caring about what we do.
It means a lot.
It means a lot to us, and we hope to continue to make the game better in the next year as well. So thank you for 2019 and hoping to see you again in 2020. New decade, I'm super excited. And Merry Christmas to all of you, and Jesus is Lord and He's born unto us. So have a very blessed Feast of the Nativity. And take care. Bye.
Bye.